So now that we have our 129 chains, I am going to be working into the back bumps of this chain. That's the V's in the front of the chain, and normally we would work into one side of this V. But for this piece, I want to have this nice even edge of these V's, which means that the only place I really have to work are these back bumps. Let's see if you can see those back bumps right there. Now I am going to start. Normally we'd skip this first chain, but actually this bump is the beginning of the second chain. So the first bump that you see is the one that we're going to work into, and this chain here is going to give us the height we need to span our first half double crochet. So we are going to make 128 half double crochets all along this piece. Always mark the first stitch of your row. The reason why is that it's very easy to lose track of where your row actually ends because there's extra V's, the chain that you use to span to the next row. So to keep that from throwing you off, if you don't use a stitch marker and you're new to making straight rows, you're going to start seeing your piece sort of drift off to the outside or drift to the inside because you're sort of guessing where your row ends instead of knowing where by using a stitch marker. I'm going to use a stitch marker at the other end as well so that that's ready for when we reach the other side. I am going to show you one more time how to half double crochet into this back bump right here. And I am going to finish this row. I'll see you there. Okay, so now that we've reached the end of our row, I want to show you that we now have V's on the top and V's on the bottom. So it makes a really nice, stretchy, and finished edge. So to start row 2, we're going to get one chain stitch that's going to give us the height of our next half double crochet. But the only difference is we are going to make our next row, and all of the rows in this piece are going to be back loop only. And back loop only means as the piece is facing you, this is the loop that's in the front, that's the loop that's in the back, it's the one that's furthest away from you. So, normally you'd work front to back like that and you'd be under both loops. But for this, we're only going to be working this back loop. So skipping this chain that we just made, we are going to make a half double crochet into this back loop only. And we're going to remember that we want to make sure we know exactly where our row ends. So we're going to mark this first stitch. And we're going to do that on every row. That's going to keep us literally on the straight and narrow so that we can keep our rows consistent and the same amount of stitches with every row. I'm going to show you again. Back loop only. So we're just going to work into that back loop. One more time. I'm going to show you. Back loop. This back loop only is going to take us all the way to row 4. To recap, you are going to make 128 back loop only back and forth, marking the first stitch of every row. I'm going to meet you back here at row 5. Okay, so we have reached the end of row 4 and we are now starting row 5. Row 5 is the row that has the armhole in it. It's one of 2. And we are going to make 24 back loop only half double crochets. Then we're going to skip 96 and then we're going to make 8 back loop only half double crochets. And these skips that we're going to make are going to be replaced by chain stitches. So the easiest thing is to count 24 from the bottom, mark it, count 8 from the top and mark it, and for safety's sake and for sanity's sake, count the stitches in between to make sure you have 96, and we will have an even piece all the way across. So let's get started. So from here, 22, 23, 24. So that's 24. So we're going to stitch into 24 and we're going to start the skips with this 25th stitch. So I'm marking 25th. I'm going to work all of these 24 stitches. And now I am going to count 1, 8. So this is the 9th. That's our top handled. This should be 1 and this should be 96. I'm going to time lapse this because you don't need to hear me count to 96. 94, 95, 96. I can't tell you how satisfying it is to reach a correct number when you're dealing with this many stitches. I am going to time lapse a lot of this, but not all of it. I want you to follow along to see how we make this row. So chain 1, and then we back loop, half double crochet, and we're going to do this 24 times. I'll see you when we reach 25. Now we've reached our stitch marker, which means this is our last half double crochet before we reach our 96 chains. And these 96 chains are a lot to keep track of. So what I like to do in these situations is to mark off every few stitches. So I'm going to do every 10 chains. I'm going to mark them off so I can keep track of where I am. And let's get started. Again, I'm going to go into time lapse on this so you don't have to watch the whole process, but at least you can still see what I'm doing. All right, we have 96. The next part is a wee bit tricky, and that is because we need to make sure that this chain stays facing the same direction all the way across. So let's go here and make sure that we've got the V facing the same way all the way across with no twists. Okay, so now that we've got a hold of our chain in the right direction, I'm going to hold it so that the V is still facing me. And I'm going to go up to this first stitch after our stitch marker. That's the first of our 8 half double crochets at the top here. So I'm just for the sake of holding my place, I'm going to stick this here. I'm going to grab my yarn tail. Now, while I am still holding on to this chain at the bottom so that I can make sure that I don't lose the way it's facing, I am going to make this back loop only half double crochet. And there it is. Now you can let go. We've confirmed that we've got our V's facing the right direction, and we are just going to do these last 8 back loop onlys. And now we're going to move on to our next row. Our next row is going to be 128 stitches across, but we're going to treat the chain like a stitch. So we're going to do like we did in the foundation row, where we're going to work into these back bumps, because basically we want the V's to sort of face each other and create a finished edge through the armhole. So let's chain 1. So we're going to do our 8 back loop only. Always mark your first stitch. We've reached the part of this where we are now reaching the chain, and we're going to be working into these back bumps of the chain. So now we're going to half double crochet. There's my first back bump. It's a little longer than the other bumps because it's the first one. And let's just keep going. I will meet you on the other end of this chain. Okay, so I have just completed and counted 96 half double crochets into this chain. And you can see that there's a nice row of V's on the top, nice row of V's on the bottom. So we've got this really nice finished edge. Now we are ready to stitch back into our regular row. So we're going to back loop only on this stitch right here. And now we're going to finish our rows as usual. And now you know everything there is to know about making this piece until we get to the part where we're going to seam it all together. We've got 4 more rows to do, and then we're going to hit another armhole, and then we're going to finish this whole thing off. So I'll see you there. Okay, so we have finished initial construction of the piece. We have crocheted all of our rows. Now we are going to assemble the final piece. We are going to fold it in half, and we are going to seam it around 3 sides. We are going to use a mattress stitch because it's going to help us maintain stretch. And now I'm going to change camera angle so I can give you guys a close-up on what we're going to do. Because there are so many stitches that go down this side, I highly recommend that you use stitch markers. I did it every 10 stitches, and I counted 10 on each side, clipped them together. So I know that I've got the exact same amount of stitches on either side, because when you get down to the bottom on something this long, it's very possible to have 1 or 2 skipped on either side, and then that gets uneven. Moral of the story is clip them all the way down. To seam down the side of the piece, you've got them all marked off every 10 stitches. We are going to mattress stitch them, but we are only going to stitch the inside loop. So this loop on the inside of the seam and this loop on the inside of the seam. We're going to go from the inside out. It's going to be a long yarn tail, and then we're going to go from this side, just so you can see. So we're going from the inside out of the inside loop. And now we're going to go down to the next stitch down, and we're going to go on the inside loop from the inside out. And on the other side, the inside loop from the inside seam to the out. And I'll show you one more. Inside out, inside out. Something else that's great about doing them every 10 stitches is that when you get to the 10th, you can sort of pull this tight to sort of get this seam nice and flat. So we're coming up on the end here. I'm going to finish these last 3 stitches. Take this yarn tail and pull it a little bit. We're going to cinch up this whole tube. That's going to bring the mattress stitch together. And now flatten it out and straighten it out. Now that the mattress stitches have been brought together, this is all going to disappear into a nice flat tube. So we're stretching it back out. That's also going to help us maintain the stretch. So I just stretched it a little further than its natural length. And now we've got a tube. So the next is to stitch these 2 flats together. So what we're going to do is find the closest thing to an inside V across all of these stitches. And we're going to go as close to the edge as possible without basically doing a whip stitch across the top. It's going to give us a similar edge like this one, which isn't an edge at all. It just sort of melts into the tube. So with that, bring this out. So I'm going to go from the inside out. This is a chain stitch, so it has a little bit of a V. And then we're going to come here on this side, and there we go. And we're going to continue this all the way across. And here is our last stitch down here. Now I'm going to bring this back inside the piece. I'm going to turn this inside out. And I'm going to pull a little bit, and then I'm going to stretch it a little bit. And making sure I've got it properly stretched all the way out. I am going to find a loop right here, and I am going to knot this piece of yarn tail, and then I'm going to weave it back through, coming this way, and then I'm going to weave it back through, coming the other way, and then I'm going to trim it. Since this is going to be on the inside of the piece, I don't really have to hide the yarn tail. And now we are going to come back up to the top of the piece. You should have started with a nice long yarn tail. I forgot to, and I had to attach it. And we are now going to do the same stitch, the same mattress stitch to close off this side, and I will see you when we're done. So we're done. We've finished off this top edge. We've tucked away the yarn tails on the inside. It's hard to get this all in one shot because it's so long, but I wanted you to sort of see this piece. I sort of measured for what I thought the original piece that this was based on, how long that was. And I discovered that because this has so much stretch, it's got a little more give than the inspiration. So if that's something that is going to hit a little too far down the body for you, you can always trim down these 96 stitches in the middle. You can trim them down to whatever number seems a little more reasonable for you so that this pocket hits you where you want it it to. I'm going to show you a picture that shows where it hits on me, and you can adjust it accordingly. And now it's ready for your phone. That's your super expensive phone pocket for less than $5.